Hello, everyone. So today, Jupiter finally enters Pisces. Jupiter was in Pisces much earlier this year, regressed into Aquarius. Now today, Jupiter enters Pisces, squares the nodes, moves through Pisces really quickly, enters Aries about halfway through the year, and then retrogrades just a little bit into Pisces. So before I speak about it, let's give a look at the transit of Jupiter through Pisces. So here we have December 28th, later today here in California. This is the ingress chart with Jupiter on the ascendant. Let's progress this month by month to get a feel. So in 1 month, we have 6 degrees progression. In 2 months, it's already at 13 degrees Pisces. In 3 months, it's already at 20 degree Pisces. Notice that by the end of March, it's very close to Neptune. It's moving through the end of Pisces by the end of April. And then in May, we're already in Aries. In July, Jupiter stations retrograde, actually exactly on July 28th. Stationing retrograde about 8 degrees from Chiron. And it goes retrograde. And then in October, Jupiter dips back into Pisces. And it stations direct at 28 degrees Pisces in November. And by the end of the year, Jupiter returns to Aries. So we have a pretty clean, very concise process here. Pretty much from this time this year until this time next year, Jupiter is going to move an entire 30 degrees, just spending a little bit of time at the last 2 degrees of Pisces towards the end of the year. So let's speak about this. And what I want to focus on right now in particular is Jupiter entering Pisces, what that symbolizes, and in particular, the first important transit of this ingress, which is its final square to the nodes. Jupiter was squaring the nodes twice more. Let's take a look at when that last happened. So we know that Jupiter was recently in Aquarius. Jupiter stationed retrograde at 2 degrees Pisces. Let's get right there. In June of 2021, while it was stationing retrograde, it was within an 8-degree orb of the nodal axis. So it got as close as it could be while in Pisces to squaring the nodes. And then as it moved back, of course, it moved back into Aquarius, but it's maintained a square. If you notice, even when Jupiter stationed direct at 22 degrees Aquarius, it maintained a square to the nodes within 10 degrees. And it's been tightening and tightening and tightening to the point that we find ourselves where we are right now. The exact square to the nodal axis will be around January 3rd. If you want to just get a little more exact. Yeah, it's sometime January 3rd in the morning here in California. So this means from now, for the next 4 days or so, Jupiter in Pisces is exacting its final square to the nodes. And what's interesting to note is that, Jupiter has yet never actually reached an exact square. It's only gotten very close. It's been narrowing its orb, but it has never in its movement in and out of Pisces actually reached a perfect 90-degree angle to the nodal axis. So it's culminating something that's been in the field, but not quite complete all year long. So let's tune into these various dimensions. First, Jupiter entering Pisces. As we know, Jupiter corresponds to our interpretation of phenomenal reality. It's how we understand and grow our comprehension and provide greater context and intuitive understanding for reality. What's this all about? What's our frame of reference for understanding everything that's happening? Right? So if we have a religious cosmology, that religious cosmology provides a philosophical bottom line through which we can understand, give everything a greater spiritual reference. So we're able to understand greater meaning and purpose and potential. If we're taking a business class, or if we're taking a go and improve yourself and make 6 figures in 1 year, we're going to be developing a certain mindset, a certain reference for thinking of our reality, right? Our optimistic perspective, our interpretation, how we're choosing to interpret phenomenal experience is always going to point us back to the path that we're walking. So of course, an underlying optimistic attitude that says, okay, everything is pointing me back to a greater potential, a greater opportunity for growth, that's obviously going to engender more or less a mindset and experience that nurtures healthy, positive growth experience. Likewise, a negative mindset, of course, will nurture a negative kind of experience. Oh, I don't really believe in myself. Life isn't supportive for me. This is a general understanding of life. Two people can come into the same room and have a completely different interpretation of experience. So Jupiter is always pointing us to the invitation to look at our interpretation of things. And there's a big difference with Jupiter between convincing ourselves of something, right? Pretending, I'm going to pretend to be optimistic, or trying on, oh, this worked really well for this person, right? They had a samadhi, a spiritual experience, or, they got the love of their life, or they made 6 figures in 2 weeks. They lost 20 pounds in 2 days. I'm going to try this. Versus landing in a sincere, self-honest knowing of what's authentic and true for oneself, and really deepening, exaggerating that, going with it, opening it up. The former, when we are trying to convince ourselves of a path, it requires constant maintenance. It requires belief. We have to tell ourselves, this is right. This is the right way to do it. This is going to get me where I want to go. This worked for me 2 years ago. This worked for this. I spent this much money to learn this technique or this way of thinking or this practice. Of course, it's going to work for me. And we can find ourselves trying on and really seemingly, sincerely efforting to become something and believe in something that is not true for us. And this, in a positive way, can really lead us down the road of a healthy kind of failure where it just doesn't work. And we're left with the stark truth. What's true for me? With Jupiter in Pisces, when we really find ourselves trying on that path, right? This is what I'm supposed to believe. This is the outlook I'm supposed to have. This is the way to do it. And we're not getting anywhere. We don't find joy. We don't find success in whatever ways we're looking for it. It has the potential to bring us back to a very humble place of looking again for the first time. And whenever we look again for the first time, there's humility and there's always a ground for growth. When we are truly open to learn, truly open to be a disciple, truly open to find out. I always say that teaching, the Tao Te Ching, a good traveler has no fixed plans. You're going, but you're not so intent on what the journey is supposed to look like. You're not intent on arrival because there's that general teaching, the journey is the destination. As cliche as that is, when we have such a fixed idea, this is what success looks, this is what arrival looks like, we end up convincing ourselves of being something that we're not. So this other path, the latter path, walking a path of sincerity and really milking it for all it's worth, we learn that with sincerity and honesty, there's potential for infinite growth and expansion, because sincerity is something that goes really deep. It goes deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. It stands on its own 2 feet. Sincerity promises success. It promises growth. It promises expansion. Not because of anything other that when we are sincere, when we're honest with ourselves, when our thoughts and our actions, which follow thoughts, derive from an authentic and honest place, there's emptiness and there's clarity. We're not guessing. We're not trying to spray a good scent over some other scent. There's no baggage in the present moment. And isn't that what the spiritual path is all about? There's no baggage in the present moment. So we're free always to look again. We're free to start over each day, each moment. and to look very sincerely. As we build this momentum grounded in sincerity and authenticity, it says whatever we do, whatever choices we make, whatever path we set on, we're not going to be holding on to the past, and we're not going to be holding on to concern with outcome. Because when we're honest, when we're sincere, there's freedom in our conscience. We can feel peaceful, we can feel rested within ourselves. And this is one of the biggest gifts we can give to ourselves and to others. To move forward from a place of sincerity and honesty truly gives ourselves the gift of being free for the journey, and thus free to really learn, free for experience. On my own journey, all of the deeper realizations that I've come to have often come at this point of tension, this point of stress, where I've let go of everything I thought I was supposed to know. Every experience I thought I was supposed to be having, where I thought I was supposed to be, and just really allowed myself to be where I am. To be honest about what I feel, to be honest about what I'm experiencing. And there's a great difference between knowledge and belief. One of my favorite Jeffrey Wolf Green quotes is, knowledge doesn't require belief, because when you know something, you don't need to believe in it. This is not the exact quote. The idea, it's paraphrasing. Knowledge doesn't require belief. Belief and knowledge are very different from one another. When you believe in something, it's not that you know it, you're believing in it. When you know something, you're not believing in it, you know it. And also when you know something, when it's truly known, you don't need to talk about it either. It's contented and it's quiet. It's peaceful. The more we feel we need to formulate a lot of effort around a belief system, around some seeming base of knowledge or certainty, it's actually a little bit of a sign that we don't truly know it, that we're needing to put effort to sustain it so we can convince ourselves that we know it. The more we need to prove it to others, the more we're actually compensating for a sense of insecurity and doubt. And what's the deal with Jupiter and Pisces? The fear is being lost. It's a greater existential sense, metaphorically, of being out there in the wilderness, in the middle of nowhere. Pisces, there's no map, there's no ground, there's no reference, there's no one saying, this is the way. God's not coming down from the sky and saying, good job, this is the way, you're doing it right. Keep on going in this direction. There can be a groundlessness. And in fact, the more we're grasping for external confirmation, the more confusing it will get. Because the trick with Pisces is wherever we direct our attention is where we're going to potentially look for ultimate meaning and ascribe ultimate meaning. So if we're wanting to convince ourselves of anything, we can. And we can look anywhere for the evidence of that. This is actually good news. It's good news because the fact that we can do that, which we know is real. I mean, we know it. Delusion exists. We all experience delusion. And we see it in the world. The thousands and millions of examples of delusion. I am certain this is the way, and therefore I'm going to wage war. I'm going to do these horrible things to other members of humanity based on what I am certain God is telling me to do, what I am certain to be my path. We can look on the outside and recognize the presence of delusion in the world. Oftentimes we're a little bit resistant to recognizing the reality of delusion within ourselves. But I think of it as good news that delusion very clearly exists, because to me that inherently points to the other way. The fact that delusion is a possibility, the fact that it's possible to ascribe meaning on anything and convince ourselves of anything as being true. And to really recognize it's easy to do that. And if we want to, there's a lot of support and validation in this world to do that. We're going to find people, belief systems, advertisements, YouTube videos, teachers, books, synchronicities, dreams, messages, cards. I mean, anything you want. We're going to find the material of life presenting itself in such a way that it will say, yes, you are right, because we're wanting that. And in virtue of that existing, if we can recognize the malleability and the openness of consciousness to be so easily shaped in that way that we can convince ourselves of anything, believe in anything, and even seemingly experience the validity of it. If we can recognize that, it becomes a launching pad for what I would describe as a very sincere inquiry into what is true. What is true, and how do I know it? How can I know what's true if it's so easy to convince myself of everything, of anything? Now, with Jupiter in Pisces, this is what it's about. There is a journey of deepening our relationship to the source of all meaning. And the source of all meaning is not something I can be like, this is the source of all meaning. The source of all meaning, as per Pisces, is life, is reality, but not our illusions of reality, not our dreams of reality. There's a beautiful teaching in A Course in Miracles, lesson 29, that says, we practice the meditation throughout the day, looking around the room and saying, God is in everything I see. And then the next lesson is, lesson 30, God is in everything I see because God is in my mind. To me, the deeper understanding that if God is in everything I see is because God is in my mind. To recognize that everywhere we look is where we find the holiness, because everything in life shares the same purpose, the same meaning with everything in existence. That existence itself is unified in its purpose, unified in its nature, unified in its essence. And that it's not something that's divisive and found in all the separate objects. It's unified in all the seeming separateness of life because it's unified in the mind. It's fundamentally true about who we are. Because it's fundamentally true, it is fundamentally true everywhere. And it's one of the deeper teachings of Pisces, that everything is it. There's a story I've shared before, and I don't know if I've ever shared it in a video. I heard this from Bhagavan Das. I might share this in the Essentials course when I teach about Pisces. I'm not sure if I do. I heard him share the story that he went to this temple in India, and he saw this monk, or this sadhu, meditating with this coconut, and this coconut was painted as a deity, right? And he saw this glow, this beautiful glow around the coconut. And he asked this monk, this is me paraphrasing this teaching as I recall it, who is this deity that you're praying to? I see this beautiful glow around the coconut. And this sadhu just takes the coconut and says, oh, it's just a coconut, and throws it against the wall and it cracks. And of course, there's bewilderment. How can you throw this coconut against the wall? And the sadhu says, oh, I'll get another one. I love that teaching, and I love all those kinds of teachings, because there's absolute holiness and meaning in that coconut and absolute meaninglessness in that coconut, both. Coconuts have no meaning. This has no meaning. This camera has no meaning. This body has no meaning. Nothing is meaningful inherently. Just as much as we can say, oh, there's so much meaning in everything, and give it a lot of meaning, as if it existed on its own as something meaningful. But then if we lose it or we break it, we're sad. We're disillusioned. When something happens to the world that we have given meaning, then there's a sense of grief and loss, because we put all this divinity and holiness in something that's temporal. And it has absolute meaning. But its absolute meaning is not because of the fact of its physicality. Its absolute meaning is because of the fact of absolute meaning, which is within. And what's within is everywhere, because that's the deeper teaching that we're all learning along this journey. There's no within or without. Now, relative to that nodal square, Sagittarius, Gemini, this is where we're wanting to be confronted with our constructs, right? This is the answer because I read this book, where I read these pages, or I had these dreams and these messages, and this person told me that. But is it known inside of you? Right? Does it rest on its own, or does it require constant maintenance? So when we let go of all of our self-convincing, Sagittarius, and all the ways in which we're trying to, you know, prove our belief, our religion, our political ideology, our way of thinking with data and facts and statistics. Spirit doesn't really meet us there. It just doesn't. I was listening to some videos last night about how to predict YouTube metrics. Right, I'm on the verge of 2,000 subscribers, which is really great. I'm excited about that, and I want to continue to produce authentic content, and I'm grateful for the subscription that it supports me and my family. And I was really curious about, looking at existing metrics. How can I? This is a Gemini thing. What are the statistics and the data that can then predict the rate of growth over the next several years? And it was cool. It was fun to listen to that. And then the inner sense that I got is none of this is real anyway. Right? Statistics are statistical. It's based on collected data. And then there's God. Then there's just the path. Right? I can lose everything. I can gain millions of subscribers overnight. We see that happen all the time. Jupiter and Pisces can be a flash in the pan. What we otherwise thought was so important just kind of dissolves and falls away like a sandcastle in the water. Or suddenly that which is lowest and seemingly insignificant can be elevated, right? Can, get publicized and get on a TV show, and suddenly they get their 7 minutes of fame. And that itself can also be a flash in the pan. The seeming illusion of failure and success, or fame and insignificance in terms of the world's judgments, they come and they go. So I think over the next few days, as Jupiter comes into an exact square to the nodes, we're going to find a great opportunity for ourselves and an invitation to not get stuck in right and wrong and who has it right. Don't bring in the past, don't bring in the future. There's a lot of energy right now to have profound insight and awakenings and realizations that will give us good momentum for this really powerful Jupiter and Pisces journey. It's going to be making so many aspects very quickly, which means the potential for a lot of quick growth and insight, especially in a few months when it joins Neptune. It's going to be really beautiful. It'll join Neptune, then it'll join Neptune again when it goes retrograde into Pisces at the end of the year. So I think just right now, there's a great opportunity to give a lot of attention to whatever brings us our devotion. Okay, so those are my thoughts and reflections on this Jupiter and Pisces. Once again, Essentials course is open for enrollment. Check it out in the link below. I also want everyone to know I have various tuition assistance options available. I always want to respect that we all have different needs, both those who are in different financial situations and also those from different countries where the economic situation is just very different than that of the United States. I want to always appreciate and create spaces for those that need some financial assistance. You can check that out on the Essentials course landing page below. Thank you for watching.